So now we're looking at qualities of a good insulation for mineral wool or blown-in fiberglass for our loose fill insulations. Um, the best practices are covered. Again, there is an ASTM guideline for installation. It's guideline 1015-06. This also addresses cellulose installation as well. So what are the qualities of that? Well, you want to see a uniform depth. And consistency, again, whether you're talking about attic floor installation or stud cavity. For fiberglass, blown-in fiberglass products, you're often, if it's an unbonded product, you're often going to see it netted. Same with cellulose. We'll look at that in a second. For retention within the stud cavity, in the case of cellulose, as it dries, you're also going to want to make sure that you've looked at your specific product and the manufacturer specification for R value per inch, and make sure that the depth at which your insulation was installed actually meets your R value goal. So it's simple math. It involves getting out a ruler, a tape measure, and checking. And again, if you're not seeing that, then you have the right to insist on the installation to be fixed. You also want to make sure, this is very important with blown-in insulations, when they're being blown into a vented attic on the floor, you want to make sure that proper blocking has been installed. And in that case, that would be baffles at your eaves. We'll look at this. I've got a picture here in just a minute that we're going to look at. And we also want to make sure, this holds true for, like I said, cellulose as well, that there is blocking around recessed lighting, around your vents, supply vents and return vents, if we're talking again about an attic floor application. For cellulose, you want to make sure that you've got blocking again around all recessed lightings. And it's very important to make sure for any blown-in insulation that it is kept at least 3 inches away from any heat-producing element. Otherwise, it can present a safety hazard, a fire hazard. You do not want to use this in below-grade walls. And you don't want, in the case of cellulose, you don't want to use it in conjunction with a vapor barrier. Because cellulose is blown in wet, so it's very important that it adequately dry before your stud cavities are closed up. And the various manufacturers will have specifications for how to identify, how to know when your cavity and the surrounding members have dried out sufficiently. Basically, your framing members, to give you a round number, should be at a wood moisture equivalent of 12 or less. Here's a picture of what baffles at eaves means, and the purpose behind installing baffles at your eaves when you have a soffit in a vented attic is to prevent wind washing. So wind washing just means you're creating drifts, basically, like snow or sand drifts. Air coming up through your soffits into your attic, if those baffles are not there, they will literally blow that insulation out of the way, creating voids or potential for thermal bridging, reduced insulation depths near those soffits. It's very common to see if you don't have those baffles. Here's some cellulose reality. It's easy for that cellulose to get blown around, and at the time of installation as well. And if you don't have effective blocking around your recessed lights, or in this case, this is I think this is a recessed light, or around your supply and return vents, for your mechanical systems. It's easy for these small particles, which do get smaller with time as they dry out and go through wetting and drying cycles in a vented attic situation, to get into cracks and holes. So that could be a cause for concern in terms of air quality if you don't have another air barrier at your ceiling plane, or if your air barrier is at your ceiling plane, or you're relying on your sheetrock for your air barrier. So to summarize, the qualities of a good loose fill installation: you want to check for uniform depth and consistency and make sure that the depth matches with the project goals. You want to make sure that you have installed blocking materials in attic floor installations. And in the case of blown-in bat situations, you want to make sure that your netting is in good shape and that it's well secured and fastened. And you want to make sure, it's important to make sure your materials, your framing materials, and the insulation material itself is dry in the case of cellulose before you close up stud cavities. So coming up next, we're going to talk about qualities of good spray foam installation.